Hello guys again, and let's proceed further. Today we're going to get details for a specific cat. As you can see here in our Swagger documentation, we can do it by calling /cat/id of the specific cat we want to get more information about it. And here in front end we have these cards, right? And when we click this button, we want to be rendered to a page where all the information about this cat has been displayed. So let me generate a component which will be a single cat component, preview cat, or whatever you want to do. So here we're going to say that we need details cat maybe. So nggc details cat, and I'm going to generate this component. Of course, I'm going to modify routing.ts because here I'm going to need another path. Here's the interesting part. If I specify that I want cats slash, I have to be able to specify different IDs. So if I hard code this like 2 or 3 or whatever it is, it's going to work, but just for one cat with this ID, if this ID exists. So right now we have to do something very clever. We have to build something very angular here, and we're just going to specify just the parameter which is going to be column ID. Column ID is named parameter, so we can get this from the route and from the link. We are going to be able to extract the ID from the link, and after that we're going to be able to call our application, our backend, for doing whatever we want to do with this ID, whatever it's get or patch or delete or whatever it is. So I'm going to say here I'm going to be rendered to component called details cat. And here, of course, I'm going to specify that if I want to see that, I have to be authenticated. So I'm going to use again this outguard service. I have to be logged in. Of course, we can remove that at any point that we have decided that this part of the application will be private. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something very specific here. So I'm going to console log hello from here, just to know that we have been rendered to this component. And I can do something like, of course, hello tag here. I can save this and go and say that I want to be rendered to cat/1. Of course, this ID does not exist, but here we have something very interesting. And uncuffed in promise error invalid can activate guard. So why is this? Well, we have a couple of options here. Of course, we have to change our network, not the network, but the console. So here we have some router which can activate guard. It's not valid. Invalid can activate guard. That's pretty interesting. If I go here to my routing, because I believe the problem is from there, we can see that here we have can activate outguard service. Yeah, I see a couple of problems here. So first thing first, here we need modelization, and we're going to build that modelization in a couple videos after we have created all of mandatory things and delete and patch and put and CRUD also and so on. So we have to modelize our application, and I'm going to introduce a concept called lazy loading. And after that, we're going to think how we can structure our application in modern way. And for now, if I remove that, let me just check if the component is working. And after that, we're going to go back and see if everything could be done with this guard. So here I'm going to have one. Of course, we have hello. Okay, so I'm going to check this and I'm going to show you. I have some doubts what is wrong here, but of course we need first to build something to work, and after that we're going to make it look better, nicer, and understand all the concept behind the scenes. So we're going to get a specific cat. Here is the interesting part. So we have to call our backend for this URL. So I'm going to go to my cat service in the service folder, and I'm going to create another function which will be get cat. This get cat will receive on call the parameter which will be the ID. And here I'm going to say that I want to return this .http.get, and here I want to specify this .cat path, but also I want to be able to put the ID. Well, here I'm going to use the simplest string concatenation. I'm going to say that I have slash after that, and of course after the slash I'm going to put my ID, and here I have to specify that here would be the answer would be observable of type cat, and of course I have to cast this down below to cat. If I go to my details cat component, I'm going to be very intrigued how I can understand what is the ID. Don't forget that here we have this ID in the route, okay? So here I'm going to use a concept in Angular, a class in Angular which is called activated route. So I'm going to say private route. It is a convention to call your variable route here. So I'm going to say private route of type activated route. As you can see, this activated route is from Angular. So I'm going to import this activated route from Angular router. And here, of course, I have a couple of things that I can do with this route. First thing first, I want a variable which will be my ID. This ID will be, for now, a variable. And here, I'm going to think, how can I get these things from here? So I'm going to say private route dot. As you can see here, I have component, children, data, first params, query params, snapshot, and so on. So here we have query paramap and query params, which is very interesting, and you can do something with it. If you have query strings, it's going to be very useful for you to use that. Of course, you have URL. And if you see, I'm going just to show you how we can proceed with that. Here we have URL, which is, I believe, unobservable. So I'm going to say result is going to be console locked. And here I'm going to console log the result. If I save that and go back to my application, here we can see that we have URL segment. And if I go and click that, I have an array of all of the slashes. So I have, without the domain, of course, cats/1. So I have first object here, which is cats, and the second object here, which is 1. That's okay for me, and I can use that, of course. But let me show you another thing that we have. So if I say query param map, and I save that, we can lock again the result here. We have params, which is an object, and so on. We can say query params, and here we have an empty object. But here's the problem with this query params. Is that a query string? No, it's not. It is the part from the URL. So here it's empty, okay? Okay. So now we have to do something different. We can choose to use this params. If I say params.subscribe, you can see here that I will have an answer, and here I will go to receive ID and the ID. So if I say here that I want to console log the result from ID, you're going to see in the console 1. If I change here in URL to 5, you can see I have 5. So I'm able to extract this ID from the URL. The second step here is to call my function, which is responsible for getting me a single cat. The problem here is the following. So I'm subscribing here, which means this code is asynchronous. So if I try to call my service, before I have this ID, I'm going to have a huge problem because ID will be undefined. So here I need to do something different. Of course, we have a very pretty way of doing that in Angular, and with method from ArcGIS, which is a very popular library. I'm going to show you that, but first let me show you how it works. And after that, we're going to search for solution, how we can optimize this query, okay? So I'm going to say that this ID, my ID, is equal to result of ID. After that, I'm going to call my service inside this subscription. It's not a good practice, but be calm. I'm going to explain you a little bit later how we can do that in Angular. Okay? Okay. So first thing first, I'm going to do that in my subscription because I need to be sure that I have this ID. Because if I call it, let's say here, I'm not going to be sure if this subscription has the result for my ID, and maybe I'm going to call the application, the backend application, with /undefined, which is not very cool. So I'm going to do that in my subscription, and I'm going to say that I'm going to call my service, which I have to inject in my case, private cat service of type cat service. So here I'm going to call this .cat service .getCat, and here I have to put an argument which is the ID. I'm going to use this ID, which I'm sure that I have extracted, and I'm going to subscribe and see the response. The response will be the single cat. So here I can create another variable which is called cat, and here I can specify that here I'm having a string, and here I'm going to have type cat, and here I'm going to say this.cat is equal to result. Okay, so if I save that and try it out, you can see here in the network, if I try to call this, you can see the response is 200. If I click it, but I have to click here, of course. If I click it, you can see that we have the response for our cat, which is with ID 5. And we have the description, we have the user ID, username, ID, and image URL. Basically, all of the fields that we have from the backend. And of course, we can do something like 50. If I try that, you can see here that we are receiving an error. So this leads us to something very specific in Angular. We're going to have a lot of errors, right? 404, 400, 401. What are we going to do with this error? I'm going to show you a basic way of catching errors in the component, and after that we're going to extract that in error interceptor service, and we're going to put some maybe toaster notification in order to display if something went wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to write my HTML for displaying this cat. And how it's going to look like. So let me think. We have this picture, and after that we have some common information about this cat. For now, we can make it ugly and just do something like div with class container fluid. Of course, after that we can do it with pop-up, for example. Div with class row, and we're going to have two columns, which will be LG6 multiplied by 2, and here I'm going to say that I want an image, and this image will be from my cat. So I'm going to specify that here I'm going to have cat dot, and of course I have to see what is the name of the property here. So here I have this, let me call it with an existing ID. So here I'm going to have image URL. That's what I need. So I'm going to say cat.imageURL. Don't forget to bind this, okay? Oh, there's another way, by the way. If you don't want to bind the attribute, you can render it like so. But I personally think that it's very ugly for this, and I prefer binding the attribute from the HTML where it is possible. So after that, we're going to have, let's say, h3, which will be the cat has ID, username. Okay, so here we can say something like owner, and the owner will be cat dot, and I'm going to render the username here. So I'm going to say cat.username. After that, we're going to need the description. So here I can say description, cat.description or something like that. I'm going to make it h5, for example. I don't know, description. And here we are going to have cat dot. Let me see. Yeah, it was description. So basically, I believe this is all for our cat. Oh, here we have a problem because the picture is really large. As you can see, it's overflowing from our column. So the column is from here to here, right? But here this image is causing us a lot of problems. A simple solution to this, we're just going to say width 100% and we're done with this. Okay, a little magic behind the scenes. So here I'm going to specify that my image is going to have width 100%, and it is working. So right now I'm going to test that with another ID, which will be 4, and here we have a different cat. Of course, it's not the prettiest thing you have ever seen, but it's just for testing purposes right now. After that, we can do a lot of CSS, we can make this a pop-up, as I said, and so on. But first, let me have just the basic functionality of this application, and after that, we're going to think how we can make this pretty. And of course, we don't have a designer, which is a very tough thing, but we can do a lot of things here with this HTML and CSS stuff. So what was the main issue here? We should have this ID, and after that we are able to subscribe to the parameters of the URL. Once we have the ID, we have to call our service with this ID. Why we didn't do that here? Well, because here we are not sure that we're going to have the ID, because this code is asynchronous, because we have subscribe. Okay, when it's asynchronous, that means we don't have the value of the ID. Maybe we don't have the value of the ID because the subscription, for some reason, does not getting the result before we're calling the other. And because the code is asynchronous, it goes to line 20, and after that it is trying to call our backend with this parameter, but this parameter is not assigned. So right now we have undefined, and if I put that here again, we're going to be sure that we're not going to have this problem. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to test that with working ID, but oh, we had the image. What a surprise. Okay, maybe I should oh, I see the problem. Okay, we have to it's not down, or what is the thing? Okay, it's really strange, but doesn't matter. That kind of things are happening really often if you rely on external sources, so doesn't matter. I want to show you how we can buy this button to go to our cats. Okay, really important thing. So here I'm going to put in my list cats. For this button, go somewhere. I'm going to put ccat info. And now I have to do I have choice. I can do it by binding here a very specific attribute, Angular attribute, to my anchor tag, or I can do that by function. So I'm going to show you the two possible ways. Okay, the first one will be with function. So I'm going to specify when I click this. I'm going to say click. I'm binding an event to my code, which will be to cat, route to cat. Here, I'm going to create this function. And I have to think, okay, what do I need in order this function to work? Well, I have to inject in my Angular component something which is called router. With this router, I will be able to navigate between my applications. So I'm going to say router of type router, which is imported from Angular router. I'm going to say that here, this router, I'm going to navigate, and here to notice that we're going to use an array, because this is the function. I'm going to use an array, and here I'm going to specify what do I need. So here I'm going to say that I need cats, and after that a second parameter, which will be concatenated with slash. Here I need the ID, right? How can I get this ID? It's very simple. Think that we have cats, okay? We have ng4, and each cat has its own attributes, its own properties. So right now we have cat.imageURL, which is for this specific cat on this card. We have specific image URL for this cat, and so on. So now I can say something like, let's say, cat.id, because for this specific cat, I have the ID. And once I have done that, why not again here in the function? And I'm just passing an argument. So the next step here is to specify a parameter, which will be ID. And of course, I can do this here with ID. And here, if I save that, you can see, we can see that we have ccat-info. If I open my console, we're going to see that cannot read property image URL of undefined, but that's okay, because here this picture is slowing us down because it is from request, and we're going to fix all of these issues. But I'm going to show you that in a minute. And if I go back and click, let's say here, we have this cat and so on. So that was the first approach of routing. The second is to bind an attribute, which is called router link. Router link. So here, for this router link, I have to specify the URL. So I'm going to say cats. Be very careful here. I'm going to say cats, and I'm going to render, because it's not a plain text, I want to render something here. I'm going to render cat.id. I'm going to delete this function because I don't need it. I'm going to save that. And here I'm going to click and see that I have that my console says that it cannot match URL segment cats4. Why is this happening? Think of it. How is this done? So here I have cats, okay? After that, my application tries to do /cats/1, right? How can I achieve that without concatenating the current URL with the URL I want? Well, it's very simple, but you have to know that in order to use that, you have to put slash in front of it. If you save that and go back and click it, there's no problem. So, two things to remember. If you're using router link, it's a special attribute of Angular, and you can use it router link, and you can use it with string. If you're concatenating a string, you have to render your parameters, which are dynamically rendered, by using this rendering syntax of this parentheses. And after that, you have to remember that if you're doing this, you have to put slash in front of it. Otherwise, it's going to append to the current URL you want, which is not the case, okay? So that was for the get cut details. I hope this video was very useful to you. I am Ines Ivanova. If you're Bulgarian and understand Bulgarian language, please subscribe to my channel. And if you find this video helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want and need to do here. Okay, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next clip.